Hey everyone, this is Amber Key, and you're listening to a Bright Idea podcast, a show where I sit down with entrepreneurs to hear about the aha moments that launched their businesses. On today's episode, we're joined by Jenna Levine Liu, founder and president of Sixx Cool Moms. Sixx Cool Moms is a national network of social groups for moms. Sixx currently operates 45 chapters across 13 states with over 110,000 active and engaged members. Using her decade of media and advertising experience, Jenna turned a traditionally free medium into a profitable space for advertisers to reach local moms on a personal level and for moms to connect with each other and foster life-changing friendships. In this episode, Jenna touches on her own experience entering motherhood, how her need for community and like-minded women led her to founding a group for mothers, and how she's disrupting the narrative of what it means to be a mother in the 21st century. Enjoy. So before we start, of course, we need to know a little bit about you, but I want to do it in a different way. Like, I want you to take me back to like 20s Jenna, Jenna in her, I want to know about Jenna in her 20s, like before there was a husband, before there was Poppy, like you were just Jenna. Like, what did you think your career was going to be?
So I went to American University, so in the DC area, and I studied political science. So when I came out here, I thought that I was going to be a lobbyist, and I was going to change the world, and I was going to do these things. But then I graduated in December of 2008. So if you remember that time, or it might have been 2007. So if you remember that time, it was the start and essentially the height of the recession of the early 2000s that you hear millennials talk about, like the great recession for the millennials. We couldn't afford avocado toast. It was a travesty. So I lived in an apartment in DC, and my options were find a job, any job, or move home to my mom's basement in New Jersey. And I just wasn't going to do that. But it was hard to find a job at that point. So my first job out of college was actually a great job. I worked for the World Adult Kickball Association, a full-time job. I had health benefits. It was absolutely crazy. I made like no money, but I didn't care. I thought $25,000 a year was a lot, at 22 years old. So I did that. And then I sort of jumped around, and I wound up when I was about 24, 25, getting a job with the Washington City paper as an account executive. And I saw that they had an opening, and I essentially harassed the advertising director like every day until he hired me, because I really wanted to work there. Advertising, give or take, I had been in sales at that point in different capacities for a couple of years. I wanted to be a part of something culturally significant, or what I viewed culturally significant. So that I was 24, 25, and that kicked off my media career, I would say. And I'd been in advertising sales ever since then. So it's been like close to 15 years or 14, 15 years, something like that. So for my 20s, I worked there for a couple of years. Then I jumped over to TV for a couple of years. When I was in TV, that's how I got into political advertising, which is what I did when we worked together. I did that. I did cinema. So I had sort of been a little bit all over the place, but I had been in broadcast media for a good chunk of time before I left to start my own company. But I didn't think that I was going to do advertising sales. And when I got to the political aspect, I felt like, oh, I'm getting my degree working.
Yeah.
Look at me tying it all together. And I really love political advertising. But I think at a certain point, I realized, oh, I'm good at this. And so I decided to stick in that field. And political specifically is a bit of a niche field for advertising. And I thought this is a good spot for me to be. And I live in DC, the DC area.
Yeah.
So that was my career in between like all the partying and going to brunch and really enjoying being
a DC girl. Absolutely.
Yeah,
being a
for
DC girl.
sure.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned like political advertising being so niche, because that's what I kind of wanted to get into is like my background. I went to school for journalism, and I thought I was going to be a reporter, and then quickly realized that I didn't want to go that traditional route. And I kind of like, I've always been fascinated with the business side of the industry, which is, if you want to get into like the business side of media, it's always starting at like an account executive area. But like from working in advertising, the people we were working with were from all different backgrounds. It's like a hodgepodge of people. And so it makes sense. It almost sounds like very linear that like you went to school for political science and then you started selling political ads. So like that makes sense. But like what was it that drew you towards advertising and sales? Other than
That's
the
so
fact that you like needed a job.
that's so funny though. You're right. It's everybody I met who works in the industry has like some liberal arts degree that they
Totally.
they if you get an English degree, you're either gonna go get your master's and be a teacher, you're gonna write books on your own, or you're gonna have to figure out something else to do. Um, so I've always been really into politics. I found it really fascinating. And so when the opportunity came up, and it came up through the company I was working for. They were looking for representatives who would go to DC just for a 6 to 8 month period, do the political job, and then go back to their traditional stations where they were at. I didn't do that, but
Mhm.
I was like, I don't know, I don't want to go back. You can't go back. You can only move forward. So the advertising specifically, yeah, like the back end of it, I just love uh, the technicality of how advertising works in terms of the consumer reaction to it, right? Like the studies
Totally.
they have done and the background in like when you see an ad, how long does somebody have to capture your attention? What are the keywords that capture their attention? What are the color patterns that capture their attention? What
Mhm.
makes a good ad, right? I found that stuff really fascinating. So I kind of hyperfixated on it a little bit, and it's proven well at this point in time in the career that I'm doing right now. But I think that I just found the like you technical aspect of how it works very fascinating, and to start to
Mhm.
get to know when you see an ad, I don't know if this is gonna hit the way they think it's gonna hit, or seeing an ad that I didn't think that was gonna do well, doing incredibly well, and
Mhm.
learning about how brands need to have a certain reputation in the market for certain advertising to work. If you're just introducing a brand to the market, you have to do things a little bit differently, or
Mhm.
your ad's gonna fall flat. And one of the cool things, Uber kind of had this when Uber launched in the Chicago market, they spent a ton of money on advertising and it did nothing because nobody knew who Uber was. So they had a year of building up who they were and getting a little bit of brand recognition. They did the exact same campaign, I think a year later, and it did incredibly well because now they had some trust in the market and people knew who they were.
Yeah.
You can't build brand trust if your brand doesn't exist yet.
Yeah. No, I love that that's what was fascinating to you and that's kind of what drew you to advertising, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I feel that that was one of the things that I loved about advertising as well as like the consumer and also like the behaviors of just human beings and like what attracts them to certain products. But I feel like in working in the space that we were working, it was transactional. It was like about the bottom dollar. So like all of the initial like glitter of like advertising what you think you were going to do was like totally different. I mean, you specifically working in political ads. I mean, there would be days I didn't work in political ads, but I would hear you down the hall. Like there would be days where we would just get like these huge buys and you're just responsible for putting in the order and like did you even see the ads? Like did you even know if they were going to like attract people? Like what was that experience?
So all of the political advertising needed to be reviewed before it went live because they're beholden to a different set of, FTC guidelines than your traditional advertising, especially if it's a candidate.
Yeah.
So there's definitely different rules. So you have to watch it to make sure that they have the paid for buy at the end of it and that kind of stuff. And although the manager did that more so than I did, I got to see sort of everything that came through. I saw some ads that I was like, ugh,
Yeah.
because you could also do like crazy advertising. Like there was in Arizona when I was doing more of the national side, a candidate who was never going to win anything anywhere, but he was like, I'm going to get my message across. And we had to put on what he put out there
Mhm.
because he was a candidate. We couldn't censor what he was. And it was like like an anti-abortion
Mhm.
advertisement, and he had like aborted fetuses in his commercial, and we had to let it on with like like a black box warning, like this is what you're going to see. We kind
Hmm.
of have to let that on
Yeah.
because he's a candidate and he's whatever it is. So that kind of stuff, you're just like, oh, and then just the attack ads, and it's all political advertising is fun, but it's gross. It's really
Yeah.
it's gross.
Yeah.
The amount of money that gets spent, it's like, it's bananas to me. You could do so much good with that money.
No, absolutely. And I remember like working together, and I remember there was always like, I feel like anyone listening to this that works in corporate America can probably identify with it's always a shit show. Like there's always something going on, whether it's like actually trying to get through the job itself or just the politics of like working with people. And I just remember you as being very outspoken in all of the best ways. And like you were
Yeah,
always,
okay.
no, like I feel like you were like always like advocating for yourself and always just like, I mean, before I knew that you were running Sixx Cool Moms, like I was like, this woman is doing something and like she's gonna be all right. Like, have you always kind of been like an outspoken person? Like, how would your parents describe young Jenna?
Oh, yeah. So I've been, well, I also think that as women in any industry, the tendency is to kind of become a wallflower and shy away and not make waves, but
Yeah,
you don't get what you don't negotiate for. Like, nobody's going to pay you more for anything. You have to ask for it, especially in a corporate job. But it's also just not my nature to let injustice sort of go by. And as I've gotten older, I definitely pick my battles a little bit more now because I can burn hot. So I was never the easiest employee to have in any stretch of the imagination. I was
same.
talented and I was good at my job, but I'm mouthy. And if a manager would say something to me that I didn't like, I would be mouthy about it. And that's not good, generally speaking. I didn't learn to play the game until like a little bit after I moved away from like the corporate office. And also now as like the head of a company, I'm like, oh my God, I was such a pain in the ass. I actually texted our old manager and apologized for being a pain in the ass. I was like, I was the worst, which is something like if you have a talented employee who's really irritating, it's so hard because you're like, I hate this person. They're so irritating, but they're
Mm.
good at their job. And as like management in any way, you kind of have to figure out the best use of those. But
But what did you think you were irritating about though?
you know what? I complained a lot without giving like, I would say, actionable items for how to fix the
Okay.
complaint. And if
Okay.
I did have an actionable item, I was often told that's just not how we do things, right? Because corporate America is red tape. Like, it is what it is. There's very little leeway. Things are done the way that they're done. And oftentimes in like where we worked, where people had been there for such an extended period of time, they
Totally.
had the way that they were going to do things. And even if they could have changed them, they just were like, no, this is how we've been doing it since 1995, and we're not going to change it. And so you're just going to have to deal with the way it was. And I've always been kind of like a social justice warrior. So if I see things that I deem as being an injustice, I get like very frustrated about it and I have to sort of speak up. And one of
Yes.
those ways, speaking of, before we started, we were talking about snow days and people getting upset about that. The idea that it could be a blizzard and they would want you in the office at 8:30, no matter how you got there, no matter how unsafe it was. There was one point where they wanted us in the office for an 8:30 meeting, and I got into a car accident trying to get there. I didn't make that meeting, and it cost me thousands of dollars to fix my car because they said I had to drive
Yep.
in an ice storm to get to a meeting. Lo and behold, COVID happened. Everybody works from home. You can work from home,
Yeah.
but that's just not that was never the media mindset until 2020, I guess.
No, totally, and I remember those days, and I remember it wasn't like you had to be at work by 8:30, it was like you need to be at your desk by 8:30, and you needed to have your list of people you were calling as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
wild.
was late every day. I get I
Like
feel so bad. That's the kind of stuff that sucks. That sucks though. You know, I learned later in life that I have ADHD, and but I could never get my shit together to get to the office by 8:30. I tried. I could not do it. This is one of those memories that sticks out to me because I find it really amusing that they had us create a sales contest, right? Like, they put us into like, what were we going to do
yeah.
as a team to hit these sales goals? And what was the reward? I was like, a day off.
Yes. That's a reward.
And they were all, the people who had been there long were like, no, they'll never do it. They'll never do it. And I was like, we don't know if we don't ask. And so they asked and they said no. And it's like, oh, we got a happy hour. Well, I don't want to spend any more time with these people. I'm with you all day. I want the day off from work. But I just found that so funny. I remember sitting in somebody's office and we're like writing it down. And I was like, this feels like such an unproductive use of time. It's like that corporate mindset treats your employees like children.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's ever like a good working environment. Like you can be a leader and lead people without treating 40-year-old women like they're children.
Yeah. Yeah. And like no day off, but drown our sorrows in alcohol around people that we can't stand. That's
Oh my
that's
God,
a
I
great
know.
solution.
I don't want to drink with you. Like you, I would have drunk with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know. Also, like it's and this has changed too drastically. Like the glorification of alcohol is no longer like tolerated anywhere because so many people just don't drink.
Yeah.
I don't really drink anymore that much.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to go to a happy hour and have a drink. It's also like a trigger for people.
Totally.
So they just don't, I don't think they do. I don't know. I haven't been incorporated in a minute, but I don't think they do that as much anymore where it's like the reward is a happy hour, where it's like your reward for a hard day is having your company pay for you to drink away your pain.
Yeah. No, it's insane. Let's face it, starting a business is hard work, and building a website for a business, that's another story. Why not hire some help? 35th Street Builders are not just website builders, they're dreamers. With experience spanning in startups to enterprises, 35th Street Builders will provide you with the mobile app and web development skills to get your business up and running. At 35th Street Builders, they pride themselves on affordability, reliability, and compassion. Ready to take some work off your plate? You can schedule an intro call with 35th Street Builders by going to their website at 3sb.io. That's the number 3, the letter S, the letter B.io. Can you share the story behind the creation of Sixx Cool Moms? Because you started it while you were still working in advertising.
Yes, but I did it on my own time.
Yes.
Using
yeah. No, absolutely. 100%.
Caveat, I did it on my own time with my own equipment. I did not use business equipment to throw that out there. So anyways, so I found that I was pregnant with my daughter in like January of 2019. And when I was about 6 months pregnant, I realized that most of my close friends lived in Northern Virginia, which when you're single is fine. You pop over for brunch, happy hour, whatever it is. An hour is not that big of a deal. With a kid, that's like a whole thing. It's really far. So I knew I wanted a support system of moms that live close to where I lived. So I like to say I do what any basic suburban bitch does. And I joined a bunch of moms Facebook groups in my area. And I went into full panic mode once I was in there, like, oh my God, like what happened? You become a mom and you become this weird mom bee where all you care about is like organic baby food and then judging other people for how they parent their kids.
Yeah.
It just wasn't a vibe. And there were also more listicle resources, right? So recommendations, questions, but nobody was really doing anything where they were meeting up in person and having those kind of like in-person mom-centric meetups, right? That weren't about the kids, that weren't play dates. So I just wanted to make mom friends. So I started my own Facebook group with the express purpose of making friends. And I did this while I was still pregnant. So I didn't even have any idea what motherhood was really like. Like I was such a novice. Like once you actually have a kid, you're like, oh my God, like this is hard, way harder. People tell you it's hard, but until you're in it, you don't realize like, oh, like I'm going to have this child for into infinity. Like I don't get to give them back. They're my responsibility.
Yeah.
And the wave of like, it can be very overwhelming when you first realize like, oh, like once the fun and cuteness of people giving you presents and congratulating you wears off and you're alone and you now have to take care of an infant, it could be like a shock to your system. Mm-hmm. So I started talking about it pretty openly, and I had pretty bad postpartum depression. So I started talking about that too. And I have a way of writing that was very engaging to people, that made people feel seen, that gave them the ability to connect with me in a way that I realize now that not a lot of people have that skill set, right? There's something about being able to write compelling narrative, short form, that makes people feel seen and understood. And it's the kind of thing that people love on Instagram, right? Where you see a meme and you're like, oh, that meme about meditation, so good, right? You share it, send it to your friends. So we started growing, and people at some point started to ask about advertising, because I didn't realize at this time, and it made sense to me when I started to think about it, that these groups are incredible for word of mouth marketing, but nobody lets anybody advertise in the Facebook groups. You see it everywhere, no spam, blah, blah, blah. They won't let it through. You could do it in the comments section, but even in the comments section, the visibility of it is pretty low. So I did something called Moms in Business, which I did on Mondays, and I did it for free for a while. But it got kind of time consuming to write copy, right? Because I was writing the copy for it. So I charged a little bit, and I felt okay because it wasn't really a conflict of interest. It's not like I was going to be able to sell a cookie baker for like a $10,000 advertising. That wasn't going to happen. So I started to charge a little bit. People were paying, and I charged a little bit more, and they were still paying. I had this light bulb moment where I thought, well, one group is one thing, but if I had a whole network of these groups, it's national advertising, and I think I could turn this into something profitable.
Yeah.
So I reached out to a couple of friends I had across the country that had similar personalities to me, because I was looking for a personality type that could be somebody that could create those connections online, but also bring them into the real world, because you needed to have the in-person interaction to bring back to the online community. That's like our secret sauce. If I didn't do events and people didn't get to meet me and hang out with me and connect with each other and make real friendships, none of this would matter. I would just be everybody else. So it had to have that little bit of a secret sauce to it. And I launched my LLC in March of 2020, 2 weeks before the pandemic.
Wild.
And then the pandemic happened, and I was trapped in my house with a six-month-old, a full-time job, and this little growing company. And at some point I was working like over 100 hours a week, like trying to do everything. And I was burning out. I just could not do it all. And our bosses were pretty much like, what's going on? Like, you're not doing a great job. And I quit. I said, I'll work through the next, political cycle. And then it's time for me to leave. And I think they knew what I was planning on doing. I didn't put it in their face. I think I said I'm going to spend more time with my child, because I was being petty. And I didn't like how they treated mothers at that company. And I could see it too, because I met people who left after the fact. The working moms just were like, I couldn't do it anymore. It's not those kind of hours and mindset is really hard when you have young kids, because there's no flexibility. Your kids get sick, they do all these things. You need flexibility to do that. So I went on my own November 2020, and we grew very quickly during the pandemic. So I went from 5 groups to 10 to 12, and now we have 45. And all the ones I started with, they don't all exist right now, right? Because I need somebody to run them for them to run. So if somebody steps down and I can't find a replacement, I archive them for a later time.
Sure.
And last year I switched over to a licensing agreement so that people actually license the Sixx Cool Moms name to start their own local or national chapters. And we train them on how to run groups, how to build community, how to sell advertising. And we act as their sort of support system infrastructure wise on the back end. Like, I set them up with an email. We handle all their billing and invoicing. And they can run it like their own little business following the guidelines that we set forth. Everybody's connected. We have like a team chat and a team page, so you can talk to people across the country who are doing the exact same thing, ask questions, because there's a lot of gray area. Should I approve this? Is this going to cause conflict? Like, what do we think about this? It's nice to have that sort of connection. To teach people this kind of new form of advertising. And it's not, what I like to say is that what I do is influencer marketing, but it's a different layer of it.
Okay.
Because if you think of your Instagram, your TikTok, your LinkedIn, even influencers, it's very much like me, look at me. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's very much a look at what I'm doing, look at what I'm wearing, look at where I'm going. And I think to a certain extent that works really well, but I'm starting to see that fall out of favor because people are like, well, why do I care what
Mhm.
you're doing? And where I am the leader of the community, so I am a local influencer to a certain extent, I um start that word of mouth marketing. So if I go someplace and then other people go that place and then they post about it, then it's not just me,
Yeah.
it's all of us. Look at what we're doing, look at where we're going, look at what's happening with us. And I think that's really the future of it, is that community content. Because what I'm building is these little niche communities essentially.
Right. And so it's for the listeners, so there's two parts that you're referring. So Sixx Cool Moms is a social net is it a social, how would you describe it? Is it a social networking organization for working mothers?
So we're a national network of social groups for moms. It does
Okay.
not matter if you work. It does not matter if you stay home. It does not matter if your children are grown up and you're a grandmother. We
Okay.
are overarching. We want to attract all moms who want to make friends and who want to have a life outside of their children. So we're groups for the moms. We're not for the kids. So I don't do events that are play dates. I encourage people to get together, but I'm not looking to do events that are targeted towards the kids because there's enough out there for the kids. Like everything's about the kids.
Mhm.
I'm here to enrich the life of the mother and allow her to explore hobbies and interests and to make friends outside of just I'm somebody's mother.
Yeah. And so then the advertising piece that you're referring to is how you're monetizing the business.
Correct.
Perfect. And so before you became a mom, like what was your idea of motherhood?
Oh man, I don't even know. I can't even remember back to what it was like before.
Yeah.
I kind of came in with an open mind. I knew it would be hard, but now that I'm in it and I have like a little person and she's the absolute love of my life, like I absolutely love her. But she's 4 years old and it's challenging. So it's a lot of fun. It's very cool to watch somebody grow up and to learn all the things, and you could teach them all the things, but it's very overstimulating in a way that I was ill prepared for.
Right. And you talked about, at first you were going on these Facebook groups and you were seeing all these mom groups, but and then you created your own. I guess what did you find were like the challenges or the gaps in these groups that made you make something that was going to be different?
So, a couple of things. One was the events portion, right? That these groups didn't have a clear leader to them. There was nobody running the show, there was nobody planning events. It was just a listicle with a bunch of different admins. So, there was nobody to really look to and be like, oh, this is the person in the community that I can trust, that I could get advice from. So I did that one aspect where I put myself and my team too, we're the leaders of these groups. So if you have issues, you can come to us. If there's something going on in the community, you want the community to know, you come to us and we'll help you sort of get the message out. Where in the local businesses, saying we're here, come check this out, right? Like that's the advertising piece of it.
Mhm.
So where the groups are really well run because we know that there's a clear leadership and like chain of command, whatever it is, if you have moderators, but we also heavily moderate our groups. It's not the Wild West. If we see arguments starting in the comments, we kill it immediately. We want a safe environment, a judgment free environment for people. In order to do that, we run it like a business. We keep it very, we're not going to fight in here about things. We're going to be friends in this group. And
Mhm.
if we can't have anything nice to say, you scroll on by. But I'm in the comments constantly, like removing things that I think are argumentative. We kick people out if we feel like they're not a good fit for what we're doing. If they're consistently starting arguments with people in the comments section. So when you go to a Sixx Cool Moms community, it feels like a very fun, safe place. And the content, because we're also content driven, like there has to be a certain amount of content that we create to keep up with the advertising,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise, it's just all advertising. So we actually create content, right? I write a lot of stories. I share a lot of memes. We have conversations about sex in a way that other moms groups are not doing that. Like we share pictures of hot guys. We do all the things to make it just a fun, lighthearted space
Yeah.
that you can come to if you're really having a hard time. And we're going to offer you advice and come together as a community in a safe, non-judgmental way.
I love that, and I loved that when I was looking at your website, how many different groups that you have, that a lot of them you're referring to, that you had like a group for dads, you had a group for empty nesters, older moms, and the after dark group, which really caught my eye. I was like, because that's so true. I feel like when people become parents, people think that like parents don't have sex, like they were
How did you get the
like,
baby?
yeah, exactly. So like I was like, oh my God, like this is so inclusive in a way that like you don't see anywhere else. Like what sort of, like you talked about your initial goals when you were starting out with Sixx Cool Moms, but like how has it grown in ways that you didn't foresee back then?
So I didn't realize how many people would actually wind up helping, because when communities come together and you give them a space for connection, people really want to help each other.
Mhm.
So recently there was a woman who posted that she didn't have a lot of money and she was pregnant, she was getting married, and that she just was looking if there was a photographer who would come and just take a couple of pictures. And people got her a dress and they got her flowers, and a photographer came for free, and they like really went all out to try to give this woman a special day who they
Mm.
had never met before. And that
Mhm.
was such a powerful thing for me to sit back and watch, because that wasn't all me. That wasn't my direction. That was just creating an environment where people wanted to help, and
Mhm.
and they did. And so I've seen that happen across the country in different ways. And that's been so powerful, right? Because the whole mission is to elevate motherhood to the 21st century, because we're just not there yet. Mothers are still treated like it's the 1950s, with the exception that now, in addition to taking care of the house and the children, we're supposed to work full-time jobs and look 25 forever. So the
Yes.
pressures are absolutely bananas and unfair, but we can change that narrative if we all work together and not against each other. So that's really what I'm trying to get out there, is that motherhood can be what you want it to be. You don't have to just be someone's mom. You can be someone's mom who loves to play guitar and play in a band, or be an artist, or be an entrepreneur, because at some point, motherhood is finite. You're going to be a mom forever, but your kids are with you for 18 years. And once they leave, if you have not taken the steps to maintain a life and hobbies and interests, and to some extent your marriage, if you're still married, you will be left feeling empty, like there's this giant hole where your kid used to be, because you didn't fill it with things that light you up otherwise. So I'm really trying to get that message across to as many people as possible, that you're important too, and what you want and who you are, that doesn't just go away because you had a kid.
You talked about this a little bit, but Sixx Cool Moms is made up of you and you have a team, right?
Yes.
Um, okay. Who like works under you?
So because we're a licensing agreement, I have about 35 people that license chapters from me. So it's like a licensee licensor kind of relationship, where I set the guidelines, I act as the head of the company, but they sort of run their day to day. I just have a team of two that works directly with me. I have a director of, or sorry, they're VPs now, VP of growth and a VP of advertising and marketing. So
Mm,
the three of us, we do all the sales, we do all the trainings, we sort of do everything, the three of us. There are not six of us, contrary to popular belief.
yeah. Like how do you think your experience working in corporate contributes to the culture you're building with Sixx Cool Moms?
So it's been a learning process, I'll say that, where I have never managed anybody before. So in the beginning, I was very bad at it. Like
Mhm.
I had the mindset where I just was like, why, you know what you're supposed to do, just why don't you just do it? Why do I have to like be up your butt about it? But over time, I realized that it's not my skill set. And it's part of the
Mhm.
reason that I moved away from having everybody in house, because it was just me managing like 40 people and doing a terrible job at it and not liking it at all, and not being productive at the end of the day either. So
Mhm.
now they have more ownership of what they're doing. It's their own small businesses. And I just have my kind of small team. I have my two people and then a virtual assistant as well. So I have an assistant. So it's just the three of us. And I treat the people that their names are Marnie and Rebecca, and I love them. They're amazing. I treat them kind of like equals. I run things by them. I kind of don't make decisions unless I let them know that it's going to, what their thoughts are on it. So I try to be more of a team member than I'm the boss and this is what I say and what I say goes. Now there are times where, yeah, I do that where I'm like, this is my brand and my company and my name and I don't feel comfortable doing this or I want to do this. And that's kind of what I do. But for the most part, we don't really have like conflicts like that. They're very comfortable telling me like, I don't think that's going to work. And I listen to them and be like, okay, if you don't think it's going to work, we're not going to do it because I only know as much as I know. Right. So I rely on other people, their feedback to sort of guide me in the right direction because they can see things in a way that I can't see them. Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing everything. So they might have more nuanced viewpoints that I should take into account based on their personal experience and work history. And so I really do take that into account. For everybody else, I try to do trainings as often as I can. I check in on them. I look at their groups and their analytics. I try to give them advice on how to best essentially build a community and be a community leader. But I just don't manage like the day-to-day of what it is they're doing. It's like their own little small business.
Was it humbling? Was it a humbling experience for you to realize that you weren't the best boss or weren't the best manager? And like, what does that even mean? Like,
So, I can tell. Okay. So yes. And all of it is like literally all of it is humbling because my entire job is on social media and social media is a brutal place. So I was not prepared for any of that. Like I love like the influencing. I love exposing people to brands and products. I love building community. I do not love being told how much I suck by strangers on the internet.
Oh God.
And the bigger I've gotten, the more that has happened. And people will develop what I call, or what I don't call, everybody calls a parasocial relationship.
Totally.
So because I put so much of my life out there and they know me and my husband and my kid, they feel like they know me, but I don't necessarily know who they are because I've never met them. So some people, they'll think that, or they'll see that and they'll think we're friends. And if I don't give them the kind of attention that they feel entitled to, sometimes they turn and it's like ugly. And so I've had a couple of those situations with people who have worked with me and for me, where they wanted to like be close with me, but we just didn't have that kind of relationship. And so they kind of turn and then they bring negativity to the organization and they start talking to other people about like, Jenna does this and I don't like this. And then I could see when that kind of stuff has happened because it ruins everybody's productivity and it challenges my leadership. And when you do that, it becomes, people don't respect you as much and don't respect your brand. And so I kind of learned that the hard way. And now I can see it coming from a mile away, but I didn't have any training for that. So I kind of had to learn it. So it was definitely humbling to have people that I thought were valuable team members, come to find out that they would talk negatively to me to anybody who would listen, including members, which hurts my brand and my livelihood. So I've had that happen. And also I think it's common of an all-female organization. And I hate to say that because I'm such a feminist. But there are a lot of women who are supportive of other women, but there are a lot of women who don't want to see another woman succeed. And the more successful you get, the more they become threatened by that success, as opposed to realizing when one of us rises, we can all rise. It's like if one of us rising, let's like pull them back down. It's like a crabs in a barrel analogy.
No, definitely crabs in a barrel. And I think that it's so important to talk about this in small business ownership is like, when something is just yours, you're just a solo entrepreneur and you're building this brand, you know you and you know exactly how you want the business to run. But when you start to grow and to scale your business, you need other people now on your team. And so it is very humbling. And it's something that we don't talk about in business of what it takes to run a business and like what it takes to be a good manager. And some people are like great CEOs, but they're not good at managing people. And like you just went through your story, but I would love to know, especially as someone who's also been diagnosed with ADHD, it's also a superpower because we're so good at multitasking. So I would love to know, like, you don't have to talk about ADHD, but like, what what are some ways that you are a great manager in running your business?
So I'll say that I'm a great leader. I can lead, I can inspire, I can get people excited about something, and I can sort of find their best qualities and bring them out in them. So I would say, as the leader of the organization, like, I do a wonderful job at being the leader of the organization and being a supportive figure and telling people when they're doing a great job and encouraging people to do things and to go out of their comfort zone and to do all of that. So I'm really good at that. But that's sort of like, yeah, that's the CEO level, right? Like the head of it. But when you're starting to get into the day to day of, well, you haven't posted in a week, and I know that these groups need consistency to run, or you're fighting with your members in the comments of a thread, and we don't do that here. There are clear guidelines that we don't do that. And to have to get on people for that kind of stuff, that is not what I like to do. It's not my wheelhouse. And it actually damages my leadership ability, because now they're
Yeah.
just seeing me as somebody who is criticizing them. So that's sort of what I had to kind of learn in that way. With the ADHD, which I kind of just realized this year, which blows my mind that like nobody's called me out on it beforehand, but I can make connections that other people can't. And I can see around corners that other people can't. And I
Yes.
also can hyper create. So everywhere I go, every room I enter, everything that I do, in the back of my head, I can think of it sort of like, this can create content. And I keep a notebook with me. So my brain is constantly creating content. And that's where I really shine the most, right? I'm a great writer. I'm a great storyteller. I can be very inspirational. I can do all of these things, but the business end of things can be more of a challenge, which is why I have a bookkeeper and a virtual assistant doing all of the other stuff that I'm not necessarily good at, right? Big picture, I'm there. I have to do my taxes after this, less there.
Yeah, no, and I absolutely love that, and like that really sent chills down my spine because they do not talk about that. Like having ADHD, like exactly what you said is like one thing that they'll say is like the inattentiveness to detail. It's not the inattentiveness to detail. We see all the details. In fact, we see so many details. That's why we can't pay attention to what we're supposed to be paying attention to,
Yes.
because we see every single thing, like walking into a room. And you talked about like being able to connect people with other people. Like I can walk into a room and see if somebody needs something, I know exactly who to call. Like I'll be like, oh, you need like so and so, like a plumber. I have like a cousin who has a friend who has, like, we know all of the things, like being able to multitask. And so I feel that like you just mentioned, sorry to go on this tangent, but
No, love it. Love it.
it is a superpower. And like I'm so glad that you're like leaning into that as like a positive thing.
Yeah, and the other stuff you just kind of work on
Yeah.
the back, or you find people that can supplement the ways that you're not good. Like I suck at keeping my calendar together. So every time I do something, I just screenshot it and send it to my assistant so she can keep my calendar up to date and keep me on task. I'll
Love
tell people,
that.
if you need something from me, you need to bug her to bug me, because I'm going to forget. And I'm going to try not to, but
Mhm.
I'm going to forget, because I have
Mhm.
so many things that are going on right now. So I've kind of done those tips. And I say no a lot more than I did before. Like if somebody comes to me with an idea, I used to be like, yes, let's do it. Let's whatever. I cannot do it all.
Yeah.
So I have to be really specific about the things I'm going to spend my time with. And so I got comfortable saying, no, I can't, in a nice way, but like, no,
Yeah.
I can't commit to this right now. I do events. Like I do a lot of events. I plan them myself. Um, I do events that I like to do and that I'm comfortable doing. But if something is a little bit new, a little bit risky, and it's going to be an expensive endeavor, I'm not going to do it, because I'm not at a place in my business where I want to lose a bunch of money. I'm in the growth phase. So I've
Mm.
just been a little bit smarter with the decisions that I've made.
No. And how do you balance those dual roles of being an entrepreneur and then helping to support mothers? And like what strategies have worked for you?
The funny thing is they kind of tie in together so well. So I also run like a business group for moms, and I love that space because I love being able to discuss the technical aspects. There's a lot of business groups out there that are just like, drop your Instagram handle, like, what's your business, blah, blah, blah. But I try to give people like actionable items, like what's retargeting and remarketing? What is content creation and what makes content creation work? What is SEO? What is SEM? How do you best use Facebook ads? What's the best method to get reach on your reels on, Instagram or TikTok? So I like to have that piece. And I think that I probably speak to the business moms more than I speak to moms as a general statement, but it kind of all comes together, right? I can write a lot. So if I have an idea that I think will appeal to a specific type of mom, I'm just going to write it and go for it. And I also use ChatGPT like a lot. I don't let it create content for me, but I filter every single thing I write through it so that the grammar and spelling and formatting looks great. And sometimes it'll fix things in a way that I didn't see before. So it's actually really helped me really hone my skills for writing compelling content.
Yeah.
But I do see a lot of people using it just to write everything that they do. And I'm like, oh, when it's ChatGPT that wrote your whole thing.
You can tell because it's like no one uses that terminology in their day to day. So,
or the emojis, very specific emojis.
Yes, very specific. I want to get into the funding of your business. And I think that it's so smart that you have this advertising background, and that's kind of what's like helping your business to grow as fast as it has. What's your advice for funding for people listening to this episode who want to start a company with a very similar business model?
So I have no overhead, right? So I work from home. Everybody works from home. I was able to self-fund it. So everything that I had in my savings, I sort of put into it. And now finally a couple of years in, we're profitable in a way where I'm making money, which is really great, but I wasn't for a couple of years. Everything I made went back into it. So once I started streamlining, I found it a little bit easier to run the business. I took out a business loan at a certain point that we paid off. I would say if as much as you can do by yourself, try to do it by yourself. You can look for investors if you think your idea is really great, but once you get investors in, you start to lose pieces of your company and pieces of the control of your company. So unless you have such a strong idea, or I would say a product, right? If you have a product that you know that you need to make and sell and it's a rock star product, look for investors. If you have an idea, like what I have is an idea that I needed to grow into a brand, because my brand is what's the successful portion of it, right? Facebook already existed, networking, social, advertising already existed. I had to attach it to my brand in a way that's successful. I would say do as much as you can to build your brand before you start to look for outside funding. And then when you do, look for loans before you look for investors. If you know that you can pay that loan back, try to keep as much of your company for yourself before you start giving pieces of it away.
Is most of the revenue from advertising and sponsorships?
Advertising and events, yeah.
Advertising and events. And so a lot of people too, like you're a business owner, you're also an influencer. And many times people think that people are coming after you, like brands are coming after you to work with you on these partnerships. Do you, in the initial stages, did you reach out to brands to partner with to gain funding?
And we still do. So the good thing about what we do is that a lot of advertising already just lives in the groups. People are in it and they want to advertise. So if they drop their recommendation in a comment, we just message them and we're like, hey, we invite you to join. We have a program called Sixx Cool Moms Approved. So it's our approved business program. We try to streamline it as opposed to just selling one-off ads. So they pay a fee and they're in our program for 12 months and they get some advertising that goes along with it. They could purchase up from there. But that's like an easy plug and play thing that we just will send out to people. And that's great. But looking for the bigger advertising campaigns, that's us reaching out, calling advertising agencies and be like, we have something new here that we'd like to pitch to you just to sort of keep us in mind. And then I use a bunch of apps and different things for affiliate networking or influencer marketing for my own personal pages that aren't within the groups. So affiliate marketing is a chunk of my business that I earn revenue from, where it's just links that you drop. And if somebody buys it, they buy it. And that's great. It's like extra money.
Yeah.
But what I am looking now is for those larger brand deals that are long and consistent, like national advertisers.
Are you able
We
to
have a couple.
Yeah. Are you able to share a few of who you guys are working with currently?
Yeah, so I would say like the biggest one now, we have attached our name to Domino's, Skin Spirits. Like we've worked with Westfields, Montgomery, which is the mall out here, Jaybirds, which is the national shoe company, Wicked Uncle, which is a toy company, Traveling Vineyard, although it's like closing now, but that was great while it lasted. So I'd have to like really look at our list,
Yeah.
but we've had a couple of really good larger scale brands.
And when these brands work with you, what are sort of the deliverables you're able to offer?
So in addition to the posting, so me like posting in the group, here's check out this product, blah, 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 blah. A lot of the times the bigger brands, they want control over the copy as opposed to me writing the copy for them, which is good, but also sometimes a little bit frustrating because I speak in a very specific tone and cadence. And I feel like when it's fed to me too much, it comes off as inauthentic.
And salesy.
And I don't like that as much because authenticity is so important, especially in advertising.
Okay.
But yeah, so the posting, sometimes event sponsorship, but mostly what they want is access to me posting in the group and saying, try this product or service. And then because it's social media, all of that's trackable, right? So I can send them the analytics of who clicked on it and how many people looked at the post. And a lot of these places, they have widgets that they put on your Facebook groups anyway, where they can actually go in and see exactly how many views and clicks and all that stuff your post got. It's very Big Brother.
Yeah, no, this is amazing. And I love that you're sharing this for the people out there that are thinking about it, because a lot of people have these like great ideas, but when it comes down to the business side and like how they're going to monetize it, like that, it's just like it's hard. I mean, I'm even like having come from the advertising side, I still find it challenging sometimes to know like what are the best ways to get people to sponsor the podcast.
Mostly at your stage, you got to reach out and give them a compelling reason why. And I tend to sell very numbers based, like this is our reach, this is how many people we have, this is our engagement. But my numbers are strong enough where I feel comfortable doing that. As the beginning stages of it, you're selling yourself and you're selling the idea of it.
Yeah.
And you can send them examples of what your podcast is and have people sort of see the big picture of it and then offer them naming rights to an episode, or you're going to draft these commercials where you're doing the spoken word, intro of it, and you're going to put it on Instagram and maybe your website, monthly deals as opposed to like one-off deals. I found the thing that made it a little bit easier once we started doing the approved program where they could just check out from our website. And it wasn't us sending invoices and managing, and it was just like a pain in the butt and like very nuanced. It streamlines it because you're like, here's everything you need to know about this program is right here. If you have any questions, we're here, but I don't have to sell you on what it is that we do because you're already in the group. So you can read it, you can ask the questions, and then you can check out. My bookkeeper knows because it's right through Wix, so it goes to one place.
Yeah.
The rest of my team knows it goes to an Excel spreadsheet so we can see who checked out, what their deliverables are, who we need to reach out to for what. It just, once you start streamlining those things, it makes it so much easier. I think that I was overselling before. I was taking so much time for these small deals when I really should have streamlined it earlier and spent the time working on these bigger deals that are, your $5,000 and $10,000 packages as opposed to $400 and $500.
Sure.
But I treat them all with equal respect, right? Because it's still, it's my name attached to their promotion. So I want it to work for everyone. But I do, at the stage, my focus is on bigger brand deals.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, reaching out to the bigger brand deals is work, but then I always found that the low hanging fruit are, I don't know if that's like a nice term to even say, but those are like the ones that make you work the hardest because they're the ones that like are penny pinching. Like it means a lot to them to give you their $50, $100 than
And
somebody has 5,000 because they obviously had it to spend.
I try to tell my team that too, where yes, your local baker, $500 for them for a year is still a lot of money. And
Yeah.
I get that. So we have to treat it like we respect them, like we respect their money. And everybody's really, really good at doing that. But just because they're small doesn't mean that they aren't valuable to us, because a bunch of those $500 campaigns makes the whole company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll actually say, like, it's 50-50. Some of those people are grateful and easy to work with. And we ask them for their, deliverables, and they give them to us, and we work together and everything's nice. And some people are more challenging. Same thing with like bigger companies. Sometimes they're so easy, and sometimes it's just like the amount of work for this is like bananas.
Mm-hmm.
And they go back and forth, they want changes and all this different things, and they message you 70 times a day. So I've noticed that across the board that it's a little bit different, but my heart is kind of with the small businesses because I want it to work for them more than anything.
Right.
I've also learned over time what my members are going to purchase, right? What is going to be successful. And it varies kind of like wildly, but I know at this point, any beauty services, so your facials, your massages, makeup, skincare, hair care, gangbusters, those do amazing. Like my dentist, I think she said she got like 50 or 60 patients from working with us. So she came back for another
That's
year.
amazing.
And I
Yeah.
was like, wow, the person who does like my Botox, she's like, I got like 50 people. Then I've had people that have been like, I've gotten nobody.
Okay.
And it's also, as you know, the buying cycle, right?
Yep.
So if you're a travel agent, you're not going to get these immediate hits. It might take a full year for somebody to finally be like, oh, I'm ready to buy it. I've had real estate agents with the same thing where they're like, I didn't do anything for 8 months, and then I got 2 houses, and those 2 houses well more than paid for the whole campaign.
Mm.
So kind of in my head, trying to manage the expectations of people. And then there's just some things that I could see. I'm like, I don't think this is going to be successful. I'm going to do the best I can, but I'm not going to try to sell this person really hard that I'm going to blow their campaign out of the water if I do not think that our members are going to bite.
Yeah. Have you ever faced any resistance or challenges in promoting the importance of supporting mothers? And like, how do you overcome that? Like any of the brands ever?
You know, I think mostly no one's going to come out here and be like, why do I want to reach a bunch of moms?
Yeah.
They may think it, but they would never say it to your face, because you'd be like, oh, Jesus, I don't know how you're successful.
Yeah.
I will say that there has been times where I've met somebody and said what I do, where they're kind of a little bit like, oh, you do moms Facebook groups. But then when I start to like get into the nuances of what it is we actually do, they're usually like, whoa, that's much, much bigger. But yeah, women in general, women business owners are held to a different set of standards and beliefs. And because I work in a social media space that's mom centric, yeah, I have to overcome a lot of snap judgments,
Mm.
but nobody blatantly ever saying anything. It's like the little cadences where you know that they're like, oh, look how cute she is. She's a stay-at-home mom that has this little
Yeah. You
this
can
little side
yeah.
hustle.
You can recognize a hater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've never had anybody come out and be like, "What? Like, fuck moms." Everybody
Yeah.
has a mom, even if you don't like your mom.
Yeah.
Most people have a decent level of respect for motherhood, I would say.
In your opinion, what are some broader societal changes or policies that could further support mothers, and how can businesses contribute to these changes?
So I think that we have to have a federally mandated paid maternal and maternity and paternity leave. I think that having people have to go back to work after having a baby 4 weeks later so that they can feed their family is absolutely atrocious. People need even more than the 12 weeks that they get off, but at the bare minimum, 12 weeks of paid leave for those people that are having children, both men and women. I think that fathers equally need the time off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, even consecutively, where the mom takes the weeks off and then the dad takes the weeks off, because putting like a 3-month-old in daycare is like a whole thing. So I think that we need to have a better infrastructure and support. And then also childcare, the cost in this country is astronomical, and it's becoming unaffordable to be parents. And you're having people just, essentially decide, I don't want to have another kid because I can't afford to have another kid in daycare. Because at some point, especially in this area where I live, I'm even on the inexpensive side. Like my 4-year-old, I pay $17.50 a month for her daycare. I know people that are paying $2,500 for the same age. That's $2,500 a month. That's one kid. So you have 2 kids, all of a sudden you're looking at $5,000 a month in daycare costs. And it just becomes unaffordable for people to have any sort of real life, and they get into debt, and it's a lot.
It's absolutely insane.
It's a real struggle. So we got to figure out a way to subsidize, because the daycares, they do deserve to earn revenue, right? They're keeping our children alive. They're educating them. They're enriching them. But there has to be something to release the burden on the parents a little bit, so that people don't have to decide to stay home because they can't afford to send their kid to daycare and then take themselves out of the workforce for 5 years, which inevitably will hurt their earning potential, because now you're dealing with people who have 5 more years of work experience. And we can't pretend that that's not the reality of it, that women are making less money because we're forcing them in some capacities to take 5 years off of work because they simply can't afford to do it all.
Yeah. Is that a business model that you've ever considered? Like, I don't know how you would add that to Sixx Cool Moms, but it's some sort of like can chapters have like childcare facilities, or like, I don't know, like your space necessarily, but.
So nobody who works for me right now needs that.
Okay.
I'll say, like, the 2 people that work for me, like they have children that are in elementary school, and they work when they work, and I don't, you know what I mean? I'm not on them in that capacity. But yeah, moving forward, we'll see what winds up happening. The bigger we get, the more full-time people that we can wind up bringing on, and I can really do some real good with that.
Sure.
But I do think that we have to somehow figure out a different way to do childcare in this country, especially areas where we live, where in Montgomery County, I'm just like, man, how do I afford to live here? Like, this place and I live in Germantown. Like, I'm like way out there in the cheap parts of Montgomery County. But if you're going into Rockville and Bethesda, some of these people are like, they're earning 6 figures, but they can't afford groceries.
Yes.
It's bananas.
No, it's wild. I don't want to run out of time, but I have a few more questions for you. You talked a little bit earlier about, unfortunately, I call myself a feminist too, but we can't like ignore the fact that sometimes like you have some women that are the biggest cheerleaders, and then you do have women that are, judging or waiting for your downfall. What do you think it's going to take for women to stop judging each other for just being moms? I mean, I feel like being a mother, I'm not a mother, but it's like the hardest job that you'll have for the rest of your life. Like, what do you think it's going to take for us to stop judging one another?
I don't know if it's a possibility, because I think it's an evolutionary thing, right? Like, now we're just bored, so we have to figure out a way to be competitive, and judging other people for how they parent might just be it. But the way I think about things is, we're all walking around, right, with our own set of personal experiences and beliefs, right? Your background is very different than my background. So something that you read may trigger you in a way that it wouldn't trigger me. And something I read may trigger me in a way that wouldn't trigger you. It's a matter of understanding, why did this upset me? What is it about this that I'm feeling judgmental about? What attached to my past is causing this reaction? And once you start to understand yourself and why you react to certain things, you can not pass that judgment onto somebody else. You can be like, oh, I'm all up in my feelings because my mom hit me when I was a kid, blah, blah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I think that once we start to really understand ourselves better, and I think people are doing that with therapy and all the different methods of growth and empowerment, is that we just need to know ourselves better, to know other people, to know when something is deserving of judgment. And there's some people out there that are, I'm just like, oh my God, like, not to judge, but vaccinate your kids. And that's a trigger for me, but sure, like, that's a thing that we should be doing, right? Like, you can't convince me otherwise. But then there's somebody out there who might be like, well, I think vaccinations do this and everything. And so if I can understand where they come from and not argue with them about it, because I'm not changing their mind and they're not changing my mind. you kind of just move on from it. We just need to stop fighting with people who don't agree with us or not changing minds.
What's next for you and Sixx Cool Moms?
Ooh, that's a good question. What's next? So I recently launched an advertising campaign for us. So I'm trying to help all of my groups grow. Right now, we're just looking to grow the groups that we have and really solidify our advertising across our larger chapters. In addition to that, I'm looking to bring on new essentially licensees that want to take the Sixx Cool Moms brand to their market. Other than that, I'm planning a retreat next year. I've done a couple of those in the past as well. So just trying to bring more of that positive mom energy to different areas across the country at a slow and steady pace.
Yeah. What do you want Poppy to know about the life you're providing her and for mothers everywhere?
Ooh, what do I want her to know? Everything I'm doing now is so that she doesn't have the same experiences with motherhood that I've had and that my mother has had and that her mother has had. So everything I'm doing now is for her, that when she decides that she wants to become a parent, that she doesn't have to make the choice between a career and being a mother if she doesn't want to, or she can decide to be a stay-at-home mom if she wants to. Whatever she wants to do, just having a community support and a real village that can help her thrive.
I love that. Let's get into some rapid fire. So, what is one word that best describes your journey as an entrepreneur supporting mothers?
Ooh, oh my God, one word. I'm not supposed to think about it, right?
No.
All right,
But
ask me
it's
again. Ask
okay.
me again. Ask me again. I'll rapid fire.
What is one word that best describes your journey as an entrepreneur supporting mothers?
Illuminating.
I love that. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Morning.
Me too. If you could have dinner with any woman who inspires you, living or historical, who would it be?
Jane Fonda.
Why?
I just find her fascinating. She's my absolute idol. Just her entire career trajectory and who she is as a person, I find deeply inspiring.
She is. She's a bad bitch.
Bad bitch.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received about work-life balance?
It doesn't exist.
That's a true statement. Quick tip for fellow entrepreneurs looking to support mothers in their businesses.
Listen.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
How do you unwind after a hectic day?
I watch horror movies.
Shut up, Jenna.
I do. That's what I do, though.
What's the latest? The one you've watched?
Last night I watched something called Nefarious. It was pretty good. Sean Patrick Flannery did a good job. Flannery.
I did hear about that. Where did you watch it? On Hulu or?
I think it was Amazon. Oh, Shudder.
Shudder. Okay.
Yeah, I have the horror movie at specific channel.
You're like real deal. I'm over here like Hulu. You're like, no, babe.
my husband, to a certain extent, I know it's not the greatest, and I really do sometimes try to listen to other things, but I'll listen to like a true crime podcast really loud in the shower, and we'll come out. My husband's like, "What the fuck is the matter with you?"
He's like, is he like scared? Like, what's that show that's like, is it called Snapped, where the wife who the wives like kill the husbands?
I think it's more, he's like, your car is locked. Why do you feel the need to check the back seat before you get into it in the middle of the day? Like, you need to take a beat from the true crime.
No, I feel like women who listen to true crime could like solve the world's problems. Like they could like they're ready for combat. Like,
yeah, I'm
sure.
ready.
Yeah.
You can't come for me. I know.
You know all of the tricks. That's hilarious. What is a book that has had significant impact on your entrepreneurial mindset?
What's it called? Burn After Writing. Sorry.
Do you know who wrote it?
I would have to go look. It's actually like an interactive book. So it asks you questions and you write about your journey. And when you finish the book, you essentially throw it away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh my God, I thought you were gonna say like Napoleon Hill. Like you're gonna like give us like some
Deep shit. No. It's fun. I think that one of the biggest things I learned is that in order to be a good writer, you have to practice writing.
Totally.
So I try to practice as often as possible. And the more I write, the better of a writer I become. So I do read, not as much as I should read, but if you give me something where it's an interactive project where it makes me think and have to have an actual response, I respond pretty well to it.
I love that. In 3 words, describe the culture of your business.
Fun, funny, uplifting.
Favorite app that helps you stay organized.
Google Calendar.
And what's one misconception people have about mothers that you would like to debunk?
That all we care about is our children.
And where can people
care? Hopefully we care about our children, but it's not like all we care about.
That's it. No, I feel like people think that mothers are like a monolith and it's not. That's not it. That ain't it. Where can people find you?
Sixxcoolmoms.com with 2 X's.
Okay. And so that's it on all platforms?
Oh, okay. So me personally, Jenna Levine Liu on Facebook and Instagram, Sixx Cool Moms on Instagram and Facebook. I think on TikTok, I'm Sixx Cool Moms founder, but I really hate TikTok. So
okay,
I'm on it, but I hate it. I just don't think it's for me.
No, it's hard. It's crazy too, because like I'll make reels for Instagram that I can't post on TikTok because the audio that I use on Instagram won't save. It's too much. It's too much.
So,
but I feel like all the money is on TikTok though.
It's not. So I use CapCut to create all my videos. So that way I don't have a watermark and I could do it on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook sort of seamlessly. What I noticed though is that if it does well on one platform, it doesn't do well on the other two. Like I can't seem to figure out, like if it does well on Instagram, it won't do well on Facebook or TikTok. If it does well on TikTok, it won't do well on Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is a general statement. I'm seeing engagement way down for I think everybody, even people who have very good engagement. It seems like it's less than what they've been getting in the past. So I just don't know how much people are interacting on Instagram anymore, but TikTok still seems to be pretty strong. But I'll say this, I find it I do more static posts than anything just because I like to write and I think they perform better for me. I also just find there's so much inauthenticity on those video platforms because people are just trying to keep you there. So they do like tricks and stuff. And so I'll see, videos that are like, stay till the end, you won't believe the last clip. And it has like 1 million views. And the last clip is like a cat knocking a cup off of a coffee table, not even a counter, like a coffee table. Sure. And I'm like, why did that get 1 million views? I don't my brain has a hard time understanding, but they're tricking the system, playing to a very short attention span idea of what people like. And I don't necessarily know that's where my audience is. Like no hate. It's just not, I don't want to spend hours and hours creating videos that get no engagement because that doesn't earn me any money.
Yeah, no. And I also feel like if you're creating good content and you're creating content for the niche that you're going after, then that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Jenna, this was amazing. Thank you so much for coming on to A Bright Idea podcast.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Jenna. That's it for this week's episode of A Bright Idea podcast. Today's guest was Jenna Levine Liu, founder and president of Sixx Cool Moms. If you would like to join or start your own Sixx Cool Moms group in your community, you can follow Sixx Cool Moms on social media platforms. You can also email Jenna and her team at info@sixxcoolmoms.com. If you loved this episode today, then don't forget to like and subscribe to my podcast and leave a review. Thank you to my producer, Chris, for all of the edits each and every week. If you have a bright idea or a topic you think I should cover on the show, hit me up on social media or email me at jacksonstreetmediaco.com. Until next time, I'm Amber Key.